Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Please join me in welcoming our friend, Matt Calkins. How's it going, Matt? It's the other one, yeah.
There we are.
There we go.
That good?
Awesome, yeah. How's it going?
It's going great. Good to be here.
Well, thank you for coming from Reston. Sure that...
That's right.
Well, that's actually, it's a reverse commute, so it shouldn't be that bad,
it's
right?
easy.
It's easy?
Around here?
So we always like to start with our speakers, and this is a real treat actually, guys, because Matt hardly talks, local events, and so we're really, really honored to have you here.
I never get asked.
You never get asked? Okay.
I don't. Yeah, I've said yes to everything.
What are you doing next month? But thank you for coming out here. It's like, I think your CFO speaks more than you, so
it's possible.
Seriously, so I'm really glad that we're getting it from the horse's mouth here. So we like to start with you. So talk about where you're born, where you're raised, maybe perhaps what your parents do or did. I don't know if they're retired, and then maybe talk about your first entrepreneurial experience if you have one.
Yeah.
All right. Good. So we'll start with you.
Well, great. So born in Connecticut, raised California, North Bay, not too far from Silicon Valley, but I came back east for school. I went to Dartmouth, New Hampshire, and I stayed east for my first job. I came down to Washington to work for MicroStrategy in 1994, and then I was there for about 5 years, and I left to start my own firm. I was 26 when I started Appian. I began the firm with 3 friends, and we've been doing that ever since. As for my entrepreneurial experience, my first look at business was tagging along with my father, who was a real estate developer, and I would go see his buildings. So he designed the headquarters for Mattel and so a downtown building. I think WeWork has their headquarters in one of his buildings in downtown San Francisco, and there was some residential stuff. And I got to go and see all these, and I got to see what it was. I mean, he would tell me the stories about what it was like and the boardroom showdowns and contract clauses and so on. It was actually great. And even now, when I get involved in real estate, I get a special kind of excited because I get to tap back into my initial business experience.
Yeah. So that's great. Maybe you're going to retire and start buying a lot of property, right? Real estate. So I wanted to go talk about your MicroStrategy days because from what I heard, you were. Well, first of all, let's talk about your roles there. But before, I heard that there was a story of you were 26 years old. MicroStrategy at that time, I don't know if it was during the time, but it went up to $1,400 per stock.
I was not there.
It wasn't then? Okay,
I was gone by then.
Okay, got it. But you were 26 years old. You walked away from $2 million worth of stock options.
More than 2.
2 million?
More than 2.
And then you walked away from that to start your company. What were you thinking?
Yeah, I think my stock options package was, everybody told me that. What am I thinking, right? My boss said that, my colleague said that. And for a while I wondered myself, because in the next 6 months after I left MicroStrategy, the stock at least tripled in value, more than tripled actually. And so,
6 million.
I was leaving. No, it was really more than 2 actually in the first place. So it was a lot.
Okay.
But I didn't do it for the money. I did it because I felt like I could do it, and I wanted to create an institution that would have an impact not just on me financially, but on the culture generally. I wanted to make an impact that I couldn't have just by being a lieutenant at MicroStrategy. Though there were a lot of people at MicroStrategy that I respected very much, I still wanted to see if I could build something on my own.
This is really interesting because I read an experiment with entrepreneurs, and what they said was if you had 1% chance of getting 50 million, or 0.001% of getting 50 million, you got 10% of getting 10 million, or you have 50% of getting 2 million. Yes. What would you pick? What do you think was the guess? What do you think was the majority?
I think that people who would answer that poll would answer it to show that they were ready to shoot the moon. But it could be that they were being honest, in which case they would probably take the lower money.
And that's exactly what happened.
They did.
But yours was 100%.
Mine was not a cash optimization decision. I wasn't doing it in order to make the most money, though if I had, I still would have done the same thing because I had a great deal of confidence, maybe too much, but a great deal of confidence that whatever I did would be good. So Hubris helps a little bit, right? If you're going to start a business, it's okay to be a little bit overconfident. It's probably necessary to be an entrepreneur. You know, I remember years ago, I got invited to this thing called the Academy of Achievement. It's a gathering for high school students, and they get about 500 high school students from around the country, and they bring them together, and you listen to the testimony of maybe 50 or 100 really successful people. And I listened closely to all the businessmen, and they all said, businessmen and women, and they all said pretty much the same thing, is take a risk. And I thought, well, either you should take a risk, or this is a biased sample. Right? It's clearly a biased sample. But I think, as you see, right, the people who have done that are those who are willing to take a risk. So that's at least one of that's a necessary condition.
So obviously you're the 0.001% that could make, you know, tons of money, right? That was the most unpopular, by the way, in the survey. I
figured when I started my own business that there was a sort of a justice function to success in business. And having been somewhat chastened by the ups and downs of the market, I'll say that it's not so clear. You can't just say, I'm in the top 0.001% and therefore I'm sure I'll make it big.
Right.
That would be a false assumption.
Got it.
A lot of things have to turn out right. In fact, if you look at the people who've been really successful in technology, across the board, they're remarkable people, and they're also lucky. Right? You have to actually do both. You have to have that confluence. So that's what we aspire to.
Before I forget, hashtag startup grind at APPN?
Appian.
Appian.
Thank you.
Appian.
That's right.
Appian. Okay.
Like the road.
So you don't have a Twitter account, just Appian?
I'm just helping you pronounce it.
Do you have a Twitter handle though?
Yeah, we do. Yeah,
Okay, but you don't have one though, right?
I don't tweet.
Okay, that's fine, because you're just grinding. You're just
That's right.
running a company. Got it.
That's right.
Okay, so I wanted to go at the beginning days of Appian.
Yeah.
Okay, so 1999. This is like, yes, it's in the middle of the dot-bomb era.
Right.
You know, obviously your company survived, as did MicroStrategy and Cvent, which we can talk about a little later because you're sort of associated with that group.
Yeah, I know Reggie.
Yes, Reggie and Sanju, and we'll talk about that because Sanju had said something. But
Great.
I wanted to talk about what was the aha moment of Appian, and what does Appian mean?
Okay. All right. I'll start with what Appian means because it's so simple and has nothing to do with the aha moment or the business plan. What Appian means is it's a relatively short word. It has historical connotations, and it starts with an A, so that in any sponsor list, we come out on top. Right? I've lived in fear for almost 20 years now that someone's going to start AAA software, right, and kick us off the top of the sponsorship list. But until then, I pay the same amount of money that anybody else does, and we appear to be the top sponsor.
I'm wondering if Apple thinks the same way.
Yeah. Well, we got him, right? We got him. Yeah.
Okay. And then to talk about the aha moment.
Okay.
Let's kickstart the whole thing.
Our business plan wasn't about how we would make money. Our business plan from the beginning was, what kind of people do we want to work with? What kind of culture do we want to have? What are our values? That is the foundation of the company. That's never changed. We've been through 3 business plans, at least. We've been opportunistic. An unusual thing about Appian is we're self-funded. Right? We broke even until we got to our IPO. So roughly broke even for all those years. So we had to be a little scrappy. We had to be self-reliant, and we couldn't have gone out with a big business plan and spent to match and then changed business plans and then changed again when circumstances changed. The only way we could have been here, the only way we could have followed the path that we followed is to self-fund and to be flexible. And so that's what we did. We didn't have a business plan that was too solid when we started out. We were willing to be flexible. And we did a number of things at the beginning, mostly around personalization algorithms, Bayesian algorithms to pinpoint the item or person or purchase or news story that you should receive based on what we know about you. Very interesting, nerdy stuff. I thought that this would be a great basis for business. I still think it would be great, but the tech bubble burst took it out. And there was no opportunity to make a business like that anymore, not for another 5 or 10 years. So we had to retool, and we became a portal vendor. We sold high-end portals. Anybody bought a high-end portal lately? No, there's no such thing. The market changed. We were selling portals, and like an interface, right? So people log in and they'd see everything they need to see in their organization. We were selling that. And that we figured we're going to be the high-end vendor because in the portal space, we're going to be the one that uses a personalization Bayesian algorithm to tell you exactly what news story, what fact, what item you need to know. But people didn't want that. That's not what they were looking for in portals. And so the expectation dropped, the price point dropped with it. We had to switch industries again. We switched to BPM, business process management, which is great. And we were in there for a long time. And now that space has evolved to the point where I think it needs a new name. And I believe that new name is low code. And that's where we are today. And let me tell you what that is rather than talking about all the business plans we've had to date. Low code means a platform for building a custom software application by drawing a picture. Instead of by writing lines of code, you use no code or maybe almost no code. Instead, you're drawing a picture. It's a flow chart. And that flow chart says what you want your software to do. And you also make some reusable objects by dragging and dropping in between the flow chart and your reusable objects. You've built a software app. And that is so much faster. Well, there was an analysis last year by Forrester Research. They said Appian was 20 times as fast as regular coding. And they also said we were the fastest in the industry at the same time. So that's what we're doing today. That's low code. It's the fastest way to make industrial strength, scalable, custom software applications.
Okay. I wanted to talk about, that's really good because I think that's a good segue to the whole concept of coding, making it easy for organizations, big organizations, huge enterprises such as the government. And so I wanted to ask about this because this is actually something I always wanted to talk to about a company, but I never had the opportunity because none of the companies actually did government contracting work. So I want to ask you about this. How much of your business in the beginning was government, federal government, and what is sort of your opinion about startups using the government as a customer?
Okay. Well, startups in this area have to think about the government. There's so much money coming out of it. There's such an opportunity there. They're one of the biggest spenders in the world, probably the biggest spender in the world. So you got to think about it. On the other hand, the government has a high wall, right? A moat, right? It's very difficult to break into the government business. They got a lot of rules, a lot of special ways they do business. It's not easy to qualify to be bought by the government. You've got to get on a vehicle. You've got to find a partner. You've got to, it's really difficult to work with the government. So they're one of the most ornery and complicated buyers that you could attempt to sell to, and yet they're right here and they're gigantic. So we made it work. We didn't start there. You asked how much we did in the beginning? 0, right? We didn't start there, but we had to go there because when our first business plan imploded, we needed to quickly turn to a reliable buyer, someone who would actually pay their bills. And here we were on the fringe of Washington, D.C., and we figured it's got to be here. Now, we had a few government clients already, but they were just for consulting work. We hadn't sold any product to them, and we weren't really doing our business plan for those customers. So we didn't have much to start with. But we figured in this environment, we just have to get the government as a client. And so we were fortunate, and we found a way. It's a difficult game, and so I understand why a lot of businesses shy away from it when they're first a startup. But we got lucky. What we used to do, by the way, is look for people who were maverick decision makers, knowing that we had no brand value, knowing that we were a non-entity in every way except that we would perform the best, that we would make the best software, and we would care the most about whether it worked. That was the only asset we had, and we looked for the kind of people, and there are even some in the government who would value that virtue over other virtues, and that's where we could sell.
When you say maverick decision maker, you're talking about the customers, identifying the buyer, and then just go like target, focus, laser, and what do you want?
I'm looking for buyers who are willing to buck the trend, who know quality when they see it and care more about the outcome than who they did business with.
Has that been your philosophy from the beginning, like looking for maverick?
It had to be for a while. We've always broken the mold. In every industry we've been, we're not a good fit. So we always look for people who think for themselves, who don't look merely for corporate reputation or a big brand. And that was especially important as we were getting started.
So obviously you did this 40 times in the government, because you have 40 government agencies now, right? GSA, FDIC, Department of Education, FDA, FBI. And then actually I wanted to mention this because the DoD, Army Knowledge Online, that thing is huge, right? Like
that is so huge.
And then you guys had a little component of that, right?
It was the whole thing.
It was the whole thing.
It was all Appian for a while.
How big was that?
Now lately it's been transitioned, right? They've moved it, but for a long time that was all Appian, and it was logged into multiple billion times while it was pure Appian. That was an enormous project.
How did you guys get into that?
I'll tell you, it's almost unbelievable. No, we weren't even a BPM company at that time. We were doing a portal project at the Army. This was before 9/11. We were doing a portal project, the purpose of which was to bring together a lot of information, which is typically what portals are for. You would get lots of different data sources, and you'd have one screen to bring it all together. And so it was a neat little project. We were going to spend about 30 man months, right, putting this together. Well, I sold them an enterprise license for $195,000 to the Army, right? Yeah, can you imagine? That's right, 190, yeah. So we had the small project, and in the midst of that deployment, 9/11 hit. And the way the Army reacted was to send us home, right? Because all non-essential personnel were actually dismissed from the base. And so I figured, that's too bad. That was promising. I was hoping that was going to go somewhere. I think we really could have helped, but then we got a call back. And they said, actually, we want you guys back. And furthermore, General Shinseki, head of the Army, is going to issue a force-wide order saying that every soldier has to have an Appian account, right? So we went from like just done, like the project was over and we were sent home, and I figured that that's it, to we're the new Army standard. And that decision was so unexpected, just remarkable.
He was your maverick decision maker.
I never met him. To this day, I've never met him. I don't know why he made that decision. I know, we were working with a maverick, but he was a colonel, right? He wasn't the head of the Army. So how General Shinseki, that was a very brave decision on his part, because we had no reputation. We were going to come through for him, and we did.
Was that so I guess what I'm trying to, you had many turning points, but so
we had a lot of them.
What was your milestone turning point? Like, how did that look like? Because you're sort of like following the customer, you got to follow the money.
Yeah.
Maverick decision makers.
Right.
Pivoting. And like,
what's your turning point? That was not our turning point. That was a very meaningful point in the history of the company. That was a big break, but we got several big breaks, actually. And I don't want to say that was the transformative one for us. I'll say that for any startup, the turning point is your first dollar. That is by far the most important moment. The moment when a client cares enough about you to trust you with a dollar, the moment they give you a contract. This is the turning point for more reasons than just one. It shows you can create value, and in our business, it's all about getting to the point where you're creating some value. So you cross that threshold, and everything past that is easier, right? Get to that first dollar. But also, and this is the core discipline of entrepreneurialism, is you have to understand the need, right? And you don't understand the need until the client is on the hook, wanting you to succeed, paying you to succeed. Until that happens, you're just speculating. You're just garaging something that maybe later will earn the attention of a customer. But the moment you get a customer and they're your partner to build something great, you're going to talk to them, you're going to listen to their needs, you're going to build iterations to meet their needs. When you have a customer, you've hit your turning point. A lot of times people ask me, how can I get my business started? And almost always my answer is find a customer. Find someone whose needs you can meet better than anyone else, and then don't worry about anyone else for the time being. Just meet that customer's needs in spades, right? Get your first dollar, get lots of dollars, but most importantly, get a reputation, get guidance, understand how to add value in a world where other options exist, right? Please one customer and then use them as a reference and move on from there. But the turning point has always got to be the first dollar.
Okay. I wanted to focus on the word you just said.
Yes.
Value add.
Yes.
And I've heard you say this many times on some of the interviews that you've done.
Yeah. Well, if you're a bootstrap, it's got to be your favorite word.
Well, yes. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it seems like people kind of toss this word around, value add. Tell us what value add means.
Yeah.
And because obviously Appian has a value add. What kind of behaviors I think you already answered this, but let's just really drive this concept. What does a customer have to do to understand, yes, I've gotten value add in their mind?
Okay.
Value add just
so you mean, how do you convince a customer that you've added value to them?
Right.
Okay. Generally, by the time that a customer is even eligible to be convinced, they're on board with you. You've spent time with them. They've offered you their money, their time, their guidance. You've done iterations, right? You've already got that symbiotic relationship between the customer representing the whole market at this moment, representing the whole market and all its possibilities, one customer at this moment, and you in successive waves trying to please and better and hone your value add, your value proposition for that customer. You're already in this complementary relationship, so you shouldn't have to convince the customer at the end of that process that you've added some value. Hopefully, it's clear beyond a doubt. But what is value add, right? It's making the customer's life better, right? It's something that they would pay for even in the presence of all the other opportunities they've got. They could have built it themselves. They could have bought it from another vendor. They could have ignored it. They could have brute forced it and just threw people at it instead of software. There's so many options they've got. Value add means you're better than any one of them.
So it sounds like
that's it.
Creating a relationship with the customer that there's got to be a relationship. It's not like, hey, it's transactional. This is like our product.
Right.
Get it done, right? It's like, hey.
Yep. I don't know if this is the way to start every business, but this is clearly the way to start our business. This is clearly the way to start a bootstrapped business, a self-reliant business. You have to get that relationship with the customer, right? You have to get them counseling you on how to add value. The customer is no doubt getting a fantastic deal. They're getting an incredibly talented person, you, right, addressing their problem whole-mindedly over a long period, thinking about this more than you think about anything else. They're getting a great deal. And in return, you're getting the glimpse of the rest of the market, right? This honest take and an ally in the future, a testimony.
So I always like to do a progression in our conversation. So obviously getting the customer, getting the money, follow the money, that customer.
Yeah.
Now you got to hire people.
Right.
So I know that there's startups here for a fact that you guys have a prototype. You may have a customer, but then, okay, how do we hire talent? So talent acquisition, tell us like what you look for when you're hiring, because I know there's 3 things that you look for. In the beginning it was probably a lot more, but tell us about this 3 thing that you look for when you hire talent.
I'm going to tell everybody my secrets. Okay. All right. One of the most important things at Appian is the people we hire. I stay involved in this. I'm still involved. I do all the interviews I can. I probably do most of the interviews in the company, even though we're 850 people right now. I did another one today. I'm doing interviews all the time. And even though they're shorter now than they used to be, there's probably nothing more important that I could do on a regular basis than keep up these interviews. It's great so that I can regulate the culture and the values of the company. It's great so that I can impose my criteria and be sure that we live up to those. And it's great in the statement it makes to our employees and that they're respected, that they matter, that they'll be heard at every level in the company, even from day one, from day -1, right? Even before they've joined, they've got my attention. We are taking them seriously. I think that is just such a great message to send, and we are all about that. We're about respect and including people, and I think I love it when people are surprised that they get to meet me and that they're taken so seriously as a candidate. But if they've been there a year, they wouldn't be surprised. That's what we're about.
So the 3 secrets of...
You're not going to let me. Okay, all right, here it is. The 3 things I look for. Number 1, I'm looking for talent. I guess everybody's looking for that. We're particular. I got certain flags that I look for. I think a lot of it can be read on the resume, but you can't see it all there. You have to validate it. You can learn a lot by just talking through the resume. That brings me to my second point, a history of success. People who succeed again and again. People who are committed to success will keep that commitment forever. You can see whether somebody's going to be a winner tomorrow based on whether they were a winner yesterday. That doesn't mean they're number 1 all the time, but you can just see that effort. They exude it. They demand it of themselves, and you look for that. I'm actually not so concerned what they were successful at. I'm far more interested in whether they are personally committed to success. I look for those people. That again can be known. You look at the resume, you talk through it. Why did you make this change? What did you accomplish there? Right? I'm interested in that. And then finally, I want to know what is the relationship between themselves and other people and institutions with whom they work closely. I'm looking for somebody with a really positive, synergistic relationship with the people and institutions around them. And you can tell this by asking a lot of questions about how they relate to those institutions. How do you feel about the place you last worked? Do you want to change anything about it? Was there anything unfair about it? If you tried to make a change, how did you try to make that change? Right? Who are your friends? What do your friends like about you? What do you like about your friends? I ask some really strange questions in this area, and I think people are surprised. Why are you asking me about my friends? Or why? And it's because people reveal a lot about themselves, about their relationships, about their character in the way they form these essential relationships. So that's the third thing I look for, kind of a positive energy with regards to relationships with people and institutions alongside which one works.
This is really interesting because remember I was going to mention about Cvent and MicroStrategy.
Yeah.
We had Sanju Bansal here.
Oh, yeah.
And this is exactly what he said about what he looks for in
He said
hiring.
exactly that?
Well, he didn't say exactly, but this is what the third point we had said.
These are really my rules. I know Sanju well, and I like Sanju, so I really did.
But this is what interesting. What he had said is he's like, this is the third point. The third point is what I look for, and this is probably the most important. Is do they have this sort of exhibit this excellence? And so he was saying we have a lot of gold medalists in our company.
Yeah.
Like, are you world class at something? I don't care what it is. Are you world class at something?
Okay.
So that's kind of
Well,
interesting.
I agree with Sanju on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then here's the other one too. We had Reggie Agrawal here for CVET.
Okay.
And when you had said,
He didn't duplicate my third point.
oh, he did not. No,
Okay.
but he did duplicate your first one, which he said that.
Okay. Well, that's.
I interview everybody.
Okay,
And
yeah.
it said that the reason why is because that's the DNA. You're the RNA. Right? What does an RNA do? It puts DNA together.
Yeah.
And that's so you
Right.
as the founder is defining your DNA and the culture. So this is my next
Right.
question with culture.
Okay.
You have something?
Yeah, about what the culture is. That's good. But let me just interject before I get to the culture and talk about the role of the founder. You're right. Part of it is the DNA, and be sure that that's correct. In fact, some people say that by the time the company's scaled really big, like when you're in the thousands of people, that's almost your whole job. You've got a vision statement. You make sure your lieutenants know what they're doing, and then you guard the culture because you really can't do much else. You're almost like the mascot, but you're involved in the culture still. Whereas early on, there's more you have to do. Interfacing with the customers and nailing that value proposition at the beginning, that along with hiring is the first major job of the founder. And then later on, you can back off and learn to delegate and so on. But at the beginning, that relationship, the one you have with the customer, the one that makes the value proposition real, is so essential you can't delegate that.
I mean, what Reggie had talked about, he said, quote unquote, you got to be crazy not to interview the first 50 employees of your company? Because, I mean, some people are like, hey,
50.
I already,
Oh,
50.
yeah.
He said the first 50. He
50.
said, obviously the 50, I can be absolutely crazy not to know every single person in the 50.
Yeah.
He said that when it got to 1,000 people, he's like, I'm interviewing everybody still.
Okay.
He's making time, so it's good.
Good for Reggie.
Yeah.
I think that's a great
And they
move
went
on his
IPO
part.
too, and they sold for $2 billion.
He had a very good exit.
Good
Yes, he did.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the culture.
Yes.
Because again, the whole,
Yes.
and you had
Okay.
touched upon it a little bit. This is a topic so we have 300 chapters all over the world here, right? And I always look at the interviews of all the chapters, and there is one topic here, especially in DC, that people always ask, and it's this whole concept of culture. Okay, so what is culture to you?
Yeah.
Why is that important? And do you feel that the culture here is, for the lack of a better word, is that a deficiency for us because we have the government nearby?
You mean in this region, are we
this
culturally
region-
deficient?
I'm saying versus New York and Silicon Valley, where the whole culture mentality is a little.
In some ways, we have essential advantages over Silicon Valley. There are reasons why you would straight up pick Northern Virginia over Silicon Valley if you wanted to start a new technology company. Let me cite a few reasons. Northern Virginia, okay, my executive team at Appian averages more than 10 years with the company, right? My attrition is less than 10% per year across the whole company, right? In Silicon Valley, we'd be bragging if we had that on a per quarter basis, right? Hey, we kept 90% from a quarter ago, right? We are so much better at long-term, like Silicon Valley is jumping ahead to the next big thing all the time, right? And if you were to build, you couldn't build a company like Appian in Silicon Valley. You don't have the patience for a long building bootstrap. You just could not, right? You can only do something you can only make an idea when it's ready to catch fire. And we built our idea for a long time when it was only ready to smolder, and we made incremental progress. And so we became the best in our field over a long period of innovation and realization and working with our customers. And we arrived at the public markets this year as a very strong firm, right? We're not a flash in the pan. We're not a marketing vehicle. We're not a hype wave. This stuff works. We've got happy customers, and we were able to build that over the long cycle. Another advantage that DC has over Silicon Valley, we've got a lot of IT workers. We have the second highest number of IT workers in the country after Silicon Valley, but far less contention for those workers. So it's really a lot easier to build a team here than it is in Silicon Valley. The cost of living is much more advantageous here. So there's a lot of good reasons, I think.
So those are great. I'm going to talk about more questions about that. Why you
fewer billboards too. There's way too many
Billboards, okay.
billboards in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, and those are really expensive, by the way.
They're ugly. They're ugly.
Yeah.
For a place that, I mean, I grew up in California, so I can say this. For a place that values its environment so much, I'm astonished that California doesn't take down all those billboards that are lining the highways, right? You drive south from San Francisco on your way to Silicon Valley, just an eyesore.
No, if you go through Georgia on 95, and it's just like tons of billboards. So I want to go back to the culture thing. So
Yeah.
what does a culture mean to you?
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean?
Okay, it's a set of shared values, right? It's your identity, and it's what you value.
Okay.
And in some cases, it's how you work. And the way Appian works and its values and its identity are very distinctive from other businesses. And these are something I feel very personal about. And I think that they're the secret to our success. Among a few other things, they're the secret. So yeah, let's talk about those. It starts with respect, right? We have respect for everybody in the organization. They wouldn't be at Appian if they weren't extraordinary, and so everybody's voice matters. Everything is expected to be expressed. So you want to disagree? We do it, right? Everybody shows up with their idea. We listen to all the voices, right? We love arguing. 2 of our 4 founders actually were champion debaters. I believe that both of them were at some point in their debate career ranked #1 in the country. And so we started our business as a debate. It was almost like a debate team that made money. I mean, it was right? We argued about everything.
Yeah.
And for a while I thought, well, this is terrible. We're never going to get anything done. And then a few years later, I started to value that. And I thought, actually, this is fantastic. No one can say anything without being questioned, right? No one can say anything without someone else saying they've got a better idea, right? And isn't that the perfect way to arrive at good ideas, right? If you're honest about it, if you're willing to have your challenge your own idea, then this is a terrific way to hone your thoughts and get to the best resolution. So I thought, what we need to do is make everybody a debater. We need to make the entire company like this, and all of them questioning and contradicting their boss, and it's going to be great. And that's what we've done. I encourage everybody. Every time we have a new crew of people coming into the company, I say, we expect you to speak up, and let me tell you now, my favorite comment will be a dissent. Right? So tell me what you don't agree with, even more than when you tell me that you do agree, because that's what I most of all want to hear. So we have this this dissent and this contradiction culture, and yet we know how to resolve. We're not forever just a contentious group of, we know how to make a decision. We delegate every decision to a person, not a committee. That person makes the decision, and then we all rally behind it. We don't have problems making and enforcing and proceeding forward as a team, but up until the point when the decision is made, everybody speaks up, and it's great. So we have this respect, this kind of adversity of ideas, expressed, of course, in a very congenial way, and then the ability to resolve, which means we're not one of these companies that can never resolve and doesn't act like a team. We're not one of these companies that's top down, only one person gets to do the thinking. We're in the perfect sweet spot in between those. So I love that. We're exceptionally meritocratic. That's another thing about us. I had the benefit of that at MicroStrategy. I got responsibility at MicroStrategy during the 5 years that I was there, for which I was clearly unqualified. And that was a great experience. Being put out in the field or having responsibility for things, they were growing so quickly, right? They had to, right? But and it's not like they suffered for it. I did fine for them. But in all those positions, I kept getting these great battlefield promotions that allowed me to do more and bigger things. And I took that with me when I started my own firm. And I realized what a terrific place that is for those who are ambitious and want to work hard. And also how good that was in getting the best that I could do, right? How useful that was in building my own skills. So it's great for recruiting, and it's great for getting the most out of the talented people that you've got.
And actually, I'm glad you mentioned the MicroStrategy, because those guys are brainiacs, right? And so many companies, as Appian, not Appian, Appian had formed, and there's a whole bunch of other companies that came out of MicroStrategy, just like how AOL.
There are. That's right.
Appian could be the same way too, right?
Well, I don't doubt it. We have talent in perhaps a similar way to what MicroStrategy had. I think there have been a lot of groups that have split out from MicroStrategy and done amazing things. So. Yeah, and you think about that, right? MicroStrategy, it started in Wilmington and came to the DC area. Look at all the companies that have been founded by people who used to work at MicroStrategy, and you see what a contribution that firm was and is, right, to the economy of Washington. It's actually an extraordinary contribution. I think any firm that starts up and grows to a certain size should aspire to that kind of a contribution. I think that they deserve an enormous amount of credit for that.
Yeah, so like Clarabridge, from Strategy, Alarm.com, Strategy,
That's right.
There's a whole bunch of other ones.
A lot of them.
So I wanted to go to about, habit of excellence. So you had talked about like you're looking for
Yes.
folks that have habit of excellence. I heard that you like to play games,
I do.
not in a bad way, but in a nerdy way.
In a nerdy way.
Yeah. So
Board games.
board games, right?
Yep.
Talk about that. Like but you're ranked, right? So War Games of the Year, 2012 World Board Gaming Championship. And you were ranked. What was?
Well, I play that every year.
Oh, you play it every year?
I play it every year. It's just once I came in the top 3. Yeah.
Oh, top 3. So so 2012 that you were ranked number 3 or something?
Well, it's 1 week-long tournament, and so I think I got
What was your rank?
I was third.
Third?
I was third. Yeah.
What does the number 1 guy do? What did he do?
Well, he won, I guess, bigger events than I did.
What does he do as a job, though?
Oh, as a job, I don't know. I did meet one of my executives at that convention. Seriously, I mean, the guy is such a champ. I mean, he's fantastic at games, first of all, so I know he's smart, but he's also just a really terrific person. And I for years, I was trying to hire him, and then finally got my chance, and now he's running talent development at Appian.
Oh, nice. So what got you into, why are you
I've liked games since I was 3 years old. I'm just fascinated. Okay, but I love games. There's so much about games that I like. I like the complexity. I like lots of rules and moving pieces, right? That just draws me in. I like the competition. And I like the way a game helps you learn. Games can be great for everybody, right? Game doesn't need to be just a diversion. It's a terrific way to tune your mind. In a game, unlike in the rest of your life, 2 hours later, you know when you were wrong. In the rest of your life, you make a mistake, you make a bad impression, you never know, right? What a great thing is a game to tell you about the mistake you made, right? To give you a score, to give you an outcome. It's an exercise, a competitive, fun, complicated, mind-expanding exercise that ends in a lesson. I did that right, or I did that wrong. That is so useful. So I love the feedback loop. I think that's particularly good. But also, I like designing games. You start with a complicated reality, and then you try to reduce it down to a few mechanisms. And I've published 3 games, and my favorites are the ones that simulate history. So my most recent was about building an airline in the 30s. So I got to read a bunch of books about the aviation in the 30s. It's called Tin Goose, which was the nickname for the Ford Trimotor if you're an aviation geek. So anyway, that's a business game. It plays in 2 or 3 hours. And my war game about the war in Japan that founded the Tokugawa shogunate in 1600. That's the 6th ranked war game of all time right now on the list. Wow. And it's on its 3rd printing. And it's called Sekigahara, and you can still get it. It's available.
I have a suggestion for a 4th game. Why don't you make a board game on like startups? You got funding. Hey, you want IPO?
I've made a bunch of other games, and one of them is actually about startups, and I just don't like it enough. So I only publish the ones that I really like.
Cool. So talking about the game of startups, I want to go into fundraising, because this is why a lot of people are here.
Right.
Because you are one company out of literally thousands in DC that got to the finish line with IPO. I understand like IPO, it is a milestone, but it's just the beginning.
It really is.
So let's talk
and there's so many different ways to get to the IPO. You can get to the IPO and have the founders control nothing, or you can get to the IPO and have the founders still control the majority of the company, as they do with Appian. So very different situation.
Your situation, I mean, just looking at the numbers,
right?
Because it took you started the company, and then it took you calculated 15 years to raise your first 10 million. Is that?
Well, okay.
I mean, it was a long time ago.
Okay, it was. That's right. So, 10 million got us from all the way to the IPO. Yeah, that's right.
Well, so then in 2014 you raised another 40 million, right?
No, we didn't. That was entirely secondary. Appian didn't raise anything more. Appian only ever raised $10 million until the IPO. Wow. And when we went to the IPO, we had more than 10 million in the bank. So that was our trajectory.
So what's your philosophy on fundraising? Because obviously that's definitely the path it's taken. Because everybody's like, I raised $1 billion, not making 10 million.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't brag about that.
So what's your philosophy of fundraising?
My philosophy is only raise it if you need it, and don't let the capital run your company. And if you do need it, and if it is the right time to bring in a venture firm, be sure you've got a real partner. Appian was fortunate in that both times we looked for an venture investor. The first time was so Appian could get some money, and the second time was so that the investors could liquidate some of their stakes. Both times we found an extraordinary partner to bring into the company. I did every one of these meetings myself, often alone, did it myself. I wrote the pitch myself, and I went out. And the reason is, while someone else could have raised money, only I could have found the partner I wanted. It was like doing an interview, basically. I was out there looking for the right people, and we were really fortunate to get to work with Jack Biddle and Harry Weller. And I mean, irreplaceable, right? I mean, what a guy. But the two of them really added so much to the firm. Great voices on the board, right? Prudent and worldly, and that's the best thing we got out of going to the venture community was we found people that we could work with and who could add a tremendous amount of value.
I mean, they always say that, like, finding a co-founder is like finding a wife, but then, like, finding a partner, a venture partner, is like finding the second wife or something. But it's like, it's literally like that because they're going to be on your board, and you're going to have to be raised to that standard of,
That's right.
Every board meeting, they're going to ask you all these tough questions.
That's right.
And they're not really your friend.
It's so important to get the right person.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just say that, I mean, why did you decide to go IPO? You could have stayed private.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it wasn't for the money. The reason we did the IPO is because we had an imbalance of virtues at the company. We had a terrific product, and we do today. We have great customers, happy customers, big customers, clear value add, where we have, I think, a proposition that could really change the way software is used around the world. What we didn't have was a good go-to-market. We were very limited by the fact that we couldn't spend that much money on marketing specifically. We had a direct sales team. We didn't go through partners. We had to sell it ourselves because our product is so novel and different, so you can't really trust somebody else to sell it. So we were bounded in our growth by the size of a sales team and a marketing budget that we could field with our own size. And that just wasn't big enough. With a product and a value proposition and a customer base and an exploding market like we had, it didn't make sense to grow only as quickly as a startup or as a bootstrap could grow. It was time to grow faster than that. Specifically, it was time to get more publicity, to have a higher profile, and to attract bigger partners. So first of all, the IPO was great for publicity. It didn't help that our stock went up more than any other tech company this year also. Right. So we got a lot of additional publicity around that. Mm-hmm. And that was tremendous for attracting new talent, getting the attention of customers. We got a lot more traffic on our website, a lot more knowledge about what low code is and what Appian is as a leader in low code. And then also, it's been terrific in attracting partners to our message. Partners, global systems integrators especially, are looking for the next big thing. They want to be the master of that so that they can bring it to their clients and say, we have once again delivered you innovation. We have once again shown that we are the visionaries, that we can bring to you the latest that the world has to offer. And so Appian can be that. They're looking for the hot IPO of the year, right? They come to us when they see that. And so it gave us just what we needed. It gave us that burst of publicity and a higher profile for us in our industry.
This is really interesting because, a couple months ago, I bought Snapchat stocks, right? Obviously, below the IPO. Yeah. And what I like about Appian's story is, you had said, quote, low drama organization for high drama events. IPO is a high drama event, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's interesting when you see Wall Street, they're like, hey, what's this company, right? And then they're like, oh, wow, the metrics are pretty good. Yeah. And then your stock, literally went...
more than doubled.
Doubled its price. It still went a little down, but it's still trading.
That's right. Its peak was more than double. That's right.
Right. But I'm saying, I can't say that about Snapchat, right? Because all that hype was there.
That's right.
And then the price was already adjusted for that, and then there's only one way to go. It's down.
Yeah, that's right. The hype was already in the market. I can't speak to Snapchat, and I don't know whether that's a good investment. Yeah. But I can say that Appian has a strong foundation, and that we weren't well known for exactly the reasons that we are that we may be a good investment. Right. That if we had been well known, it would have been because we were spending more money than we were making. Right. We were creating a lot of buzz. Right? But we didn't. Instead, we're a quality first organization, and the publicity is second. The publicity is the IPO.
So the stock ticker is APPN?
Yes, it is.
Okay, APPN, guys.
Yeah, and I literally haven't.
It's more safe than Bitcoin.
I haven't checked the ticker in weeks.
Got it. Okay.
I don't follow it, but it is APPN.
Do you guys have like, how do you guys incentivize your workforce? Do you have like stock options?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
We have stock options, and everybody's got options. And
You have a-
now we just got RSUs.
Looking for
Oh, we sure are. Yes.
You are?
Yeah, we're hiring.
afterwards.
We're hiring quickly.
Okay, so I wanted to go to, we have, we have about, I'm going to open up the Q&A.
Yeah, that's
really
great.
quick here, but
Okay.
I wanted to hit on this topic before we do Q&A. I want to talk about mega trends and enterprise mobile, because that's your space.
Right.
There's some startups here that are enterprise B2B. What is sort of the trends you see that's happening other than the low code thing? Like, are there,
Okay.
what sort of trends you see?
Well, the great thing about all these trends is that they all touch what we do. So a new trend, say mobile or AI or something, doesn't need to be an academic pursuit for us. As the automator of unique behaviors in an organization, and that's what we do, right? In low code, we create unique behaviors, processes, applications in an organization. Those behaviors touch all of these new functions, right? If you're going to use AI, you're going to call it probably from a unique piece of software, which means we're making the call. If you're going to use a mobile device, right, you'll probably use that mobile device as a window on your organization. You're going to want to consume your unique software through that mobile device. So these aren't, as I say, academic things to us. It's core to our business. Our job is to orchestrate the enterprise and to make usable and simple all of these new innovations that are coming onto the radar right now. So take mobile, for example. If a customer builds an application in Appian, it automatically runs on every popular mobile device. They don't have to change anything. You just load it up on a mobile device, and there it is. It works, and it looks like it was made for that mobile device. Even better, if in the future a new kind of mobile device is invented, something that hadn't been anticipated at the moment you built your application in Appian, it'll run anyway. Appian will work on tomorrow's mobile device, because that's our job, to be sure that your applications are future-proof and run on the next generation. So if 5 years from now, everybody's using Oculus Rift goggles to walk through business applications in 3D, the application you built in Appian today will work in 3D on Oculus Rift in 5 years.
Okay, let me rephrase the question, because I can kind of see you as like the OS of an organization that can build anything.
In a way, right.
What
We're
would
an
be the
orchestrator,
components?
and that's similar.
What would
Yeah.
be the trend? Like, hey, here's AI as a big trend.
Yeah.
Like, what's up?
Oh, well, we leverage that. We certainly do. At our last annual conference, we demonstrated how we could call AI. You quickly and easily load up a data set and then get responses back from Amazon AI and Google AI, and how it could run and just inform your decisions, inform human decisions, and we just make it as easy as possible. We're not trying to invent AI. We understand that there's teams of fantastically brilliant people and gigantic budgets behind inventing AI. Our job is to make it valuable, which today, for a lot of companies, it's not. Like a lot of these trends, they get invented, they get hot, they're full of buzz, and yet, how do you really make value out of it? You can talk about it, but can you make it practical? Our job is to make it practical. We're going to make AI easy. We can just connect to it. You upload your data set, push this button, AI advice is there. We do the same thing for robotic process automation. We do the same thing for mobile devices. Our job is not to invent, it is to enable, to make practical the inventions that the world is producing.
Good. And you're hiring. So,
Yeah, we are.
because, startups is a 95% failure rate, so
We're growing quickly. Yeah.
it can't be enjoyable. So let's talk about the DC tech scene, because, in the beginning, you could have gone anywhere.
That's right.
Chose this. I know you've talked about a little bit about it. Yes.
Yeah.
You decided to stay here in DC versus Silicon Valley and New York.
Technically, we're in Northern Virginia, but we're in the DC area. Yeah, that's
people
right.
they don't care. They're like, you're from DC.
It's all the same.
Right. Do you see this area? And so the question would be like, AOL 15 years ago put Northern Virginia on the map, and that kind of fizzled down. Do you think Appian would put Northern Virginia on the map? I mean, I guess the question would be like, why should startups stay here? And is there going to be a big revolution happening in DC?
Okay.
And is that going to be by a catalyst like Appian? And
We'll do our best.
Living Social was supposed to be like that. Right?
Yeah. Well, we're doing our best.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll open up for Q&A. Yes. So anybody have any questions? Okay. Well, first of all, is there any City Pass members or VIP that have a question first? No? Okay, so I want you to stand.
So Matthew, you work for two great companies, MicroStrategy, obviously.
Yeah. Yes.
I've read about MicroStrategy, really amazingly successful in the 1990s. Then things weren't too exciting in the 2000s. So without denigrating your former employer, what were some of the things that you saw that you wanted to emulate in APN? And what were things that you saw either while you were there or after that you would never want to emulate?
Yeah, okay. Well, I first want to say that MicroStrategy is more characterized by its virtues than by its faults. And so I found much more to emulate than not to emulate. It's a company full of exceptionally bright people, and they worked really hard. And I love the way they invented their market. They really thought their way through the market. Roll-app, for example, doing analytics against a big database relationally by writing SQL directly rather than by caching the data in a cube that was built for access and built for kind of slicing and aggregating was a pretty revolutionary idea. And they came up with that on their own, and then they wrote that SQL generator on their own. They invented an interface that didn't look like anybody's interface. It was really a remarkable job of self-creation. I mean that in a corporate and also a personal sense. So I think I may skip the part about the criticism, just generally out of respect for the institution. I think it's not without its faults, and I'll admit that. But generally, I think that it's more worthy of emulation than avoidance.
Okay, next question.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you for coming and speaking to us today on a very successful IPO a couple months ago.
Thank you.
One of the things I appreciate most about the company is how deliberate your growth has been over time, something that you emphasize pretty strongly.
Yeah.
So now IPO, a lot of money coming into the company, a lot of notoriety, very clearly ready to kind of expand and accelerate. How do you maintain this culture that you've worked so hard to cultivate over time as you're starting to grow faster than you really ever have?
Right. I think that every culture is threatened by growth, right? Because dilution threatens growth. So there's a natural trade-off between the number of people and the intensity of the culture. However, some institutions are naturally resistant to that trade-off and can preserve their culture exceptionally well, and others allow the dilution almost undefended. So we're absolutely in the first camp, and I wouldn't be surprised to see our culture be just as strong after a year, 2 years, several years of growth as it is today, because we put so much effort into emphasizing our virtues, right? For example, the openness, right, of opinions, where everybody gets information, everybody gets to speak their mind, everybody's voice gets heard. That is accentuated in every way. I speak to every incoming group of people about how that's our value, right? I encourage it whenever I see it. Our product encourages it because our product is an open workspace that unifies people and allows everybody's comment to go out to everybody else. We have so fortified our culture, and we teach every person to be a teacher of the culture and to try to spread that to the next generation of employees. So I think we've done a great deal to preserve what we stand for, and we should, because it is our secret advantage over other firms. So I agree that growth threatens dilution to anybody, but we've done such a focused job of staying on our culture that I don't think we'll be shaken.
Okay, so before I take her, so you went IPO, and so there's a lot of dry powder. Do you do angel investing? And if you do, what kind of startups are you looking for?
We don't do angel investing,
No,
sorry. Oh, you mean me
that-
personally?
yeah.
Me personally, I'm too busy. I'm sorry.
If you, was that? Oh, public company, right? Okay. Well, just let us know if you start doing angel investing.
Yeah, I know that's a popular thing to do. I really haven't the time.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'm going through Georgetown Startup Voyas in meeting. I'm really intrigued by what you had to say about being nimble and listening to the customer and just being very flexible in what a solution looked like to them rather than you. Can you speak to that more in terms of, I assume there's some tension there with establishing yourself as a product and a solution, and then also suddenly we're changing identities. I'm hearing that more and more as I go to these, so.
That's right. I'm so glad you asked, because I think this is one of the most important things I could say to an entrepreneur who's beginning their journey. And it is, right? Because there's going to be this natural tension, right? Every entrepreneur is going to start out with an idea. That's typically what they, now I didn't, but most generally they do, right? They start with an idea, and that's the foundation, and they become very attached to this idea. And what I'm saying is, find a customer and then make what that customer wants your idea. Be willing to really change what you thought you were going to build in order to match what's valuable for that customer, and let them right now be a microcosm for all the market that's to come. Begin right there, and hopefully you found a customer who has representative demands, right, that are be similar to what you get later on, but be willing to make their needs into your vision, right, and not be single-minded about what was your idea at the beginning, and maybe what you had to pitch to an angel investor, and maybe what you had to write into your business plan. I'm saying what the customer wants is actually more important than that. And so that's a hard thing to do. I think a lot of entrepreneurs reach this crossroads early on. I've seen very good entrepreneurs mess this up, by the way. They reach this crossroads and they stay with their vision. And then a year, 2 years pass, and where's the customer? Oh, we don't have one yet, right? Why not? Because we're still building the perfect vision, right? But nobody wants it, right? There isn't a buyer. We haven't delivered what matters to anyone. We've delivered what we thought would matter. So it's a classic mistake, right? So many startups fail because of this. The customer, I mean, if I were to write a book about how, I mean, this would be the essential link. You get that customer, and then that's your vision. To be practical, to be a bootstrap, that's how you do it, for sure.
We got one time for one more. All right. Okay, so how many, wait, you can talk to that afterwards. How many business cards did you collect today?
Today, 0.
How about you?
I have a couple of business cards.
No, how many did you collect? How about you? 2? All right, do a rock, scissors, paper, and then you get the answer.
I also have a city pass member.
All right, there we go. So this is go. All right. Should have said something. You should ask. That's the first question.
Yeah, hi, it's this is Ruka, and I run the analytics and sound practice. My question for you is, what is Appian's data strategy? You obviously collect, Appian's platform collects lots of data on the users that are creating software. Are you using machine learning techniques to predict software quality? Are you using predictive models like the mining repository data?
Yes. Okay.
So machine learning, and would you see trends in applying machine learning for your industry?
Okay. No Appian feature is inspired or informed by machine learning. We do care about artificial intelligence, but we don't write our features based on that. And we don't choose our product direction, nor strategy, nor our path or a technical path based on this, because artificial intelligence tells you about past behavior. Artificial intelligence is useful in cases where behavior is relatively static, right? A cat is a cat, and if you're going to analyze photos and tell me whether it's a cat, then a machine learning algorithm would be great, because cats look the same yesterday as they did tomorrow. But as Henry Ford said, if I'd given them what they wanted, I would have made a faster horse, right? And so I don't want machine learning to tell me what innovations we should next come up with, because it'll be an extrapolation on current behavior. It'll be an intuition upon current behavior. And what I'm trying to do is create a product that is so revolutionary that it changes the way people want to behave, and it breaks them out of the pattern that they're in. I'm not trying to optimize the pattern they've got. I'm trying to knock them completely out of it. And so machine learning would help me to reach what would be a local maxima, but not a global maxima.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up, so I have 2 last questions.
Okay.
So, first question.
Yeah.
What would be the best piece of advice you would have given to yourself 15 years ago?
All right. The best piece of advice. Okay. One of them is, every step from here to the IPO, you can totally do this, right? There is no scary step. There is no place that you cannot just walk all the way to the IPO. And I would say the same to people in this room, right? If you're thinking about starting a business, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're getting going, there is no step that you can't do. So don't be worried about that, right? Just deliberately continue, build your plan, reach your customers, follow your game plan, get the right people around you, build a culture, and have the right values, and you can just make it there. So I think that might be the most important piece of advice. I would also say the most important decision you can make is who you trust to run part of your company. And so you've absolutely got to get that correct. And I would say, ever seen that photograph of the initial founding team at Microsoft?
Yeah.
Right? Have you seen that? Right? And they look like.
Yeah, they look like from Mars.
Yeah, that's right. They're in the 70s, right? And they're dressed in colorful 70s garb, and they do not look like the founding team of the world's most valuable company, do they? And yet they were. They were. And the reason why they were the best founding team that Bill Gates could have gotten together is because they were ready to do what Bill Gates wanted to. They were ready to follow Bill Gates' plan. And if he had hired the world's most qualified people, Microsoft would never have become what it did. He had to find the people who would be on his side and work in concert with him and make his plan real more than he needed the best talent on earth. So find the people who will follow you instead of find the best resumes.
It's awesome. So one last question. It's probably the most important question because I asked all the speakers.
Okay.
Who's your favorite superhero or historical figure and why?
Wow. Okay.
You can superhero or historical figure.
Yeah. Well, you see, I love biographies, so I read about all sorts of historical figures. Now, you don't want a business person, do you? You just want any historical figure, no matter what it is they did. Well, it would have to be an inventor of something, probably a thinker, right? I'd like someone who invented a new concept, right? Maybe it's like the first wheel, right? Maybe I could find, right? If there's I want somebody who invented a great idea and then made it real. And I love to find people like this in business biographies. I don't read many business books, I should say. I almost never read a business book unless it's a business biography. And those stories can be really valuable. I love reading those. And if you're interested, you can go back and read the stories of people who invented their industry. Read My Years at General Motors, right, by Alfred P. Sloan, or Titan about John D. Rockefeller. These stories, formative stories of industries that by now are old and sleepy, but at a time they were absolutely not, right? There was a raging fight over oil, right? And whether this would be a vertical monopoly and whether it was, right, whether you could make refineries sustainable with the fluctuation in oil prices. Someone had to invent the way that industry works. Somebody had to invent whether cars are water-cooled or air-cooled, right? Someone had to make these formative, primordial decisions, and those people are heroes, right? They're the people who invent an industry. And it's great to refer to those because we're inventing our industry right now. As Jeff Bezos says, and he'd be a good pick too, as Jeff Bezos says, it's always day one. In the technology, in the internet industry, we're still making these primordial decisions, and that is such a thrill. I'm not even originally a technologist. I'm an economist, that's my degree. I got into technology because I wanted to be in an industry where things were changing constantly. I wanted to be making decisions like that, and this was the place where you could do it. Writing software, what a fantastic thing to be able to do. I remember back at MicroStrategy, the amazement, my boss thing, I can't believe it, I just sold software for $1 million. It does blow the mind, actually, that you can just code something and then sell it for $1 million. And yet we are creating, I mean, it's worth it. It's creating that kind of value. It's wonderful to be at that primordial origination stage in an industry. I've completely gone off track.
No, that's good. Yeah.
You don't mind this? Yeah, because I didn't exactly answer your question, but I'm not going to get it down to one person anyway. But I will say the creator, right? I'll pick the creator.
Great. Well, thank you for spending the time with us in the evening, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Calkins, thank you for coming out.
Thank you very much.